Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Meet the Candidates event for the City of Saratoga Springs, Commissioner of Accounts. All the candidates on the ballot were invited and all are here this evening. The event was organized by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County. My name is Ann Krill. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County, and I will be your moderator tonight. The League of Women Voters of Saratoga County is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization dedicated to the informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. That has been League policy since 1920. Membership is open to anyone who is eligible to register and vote. Before we start, I want to remind the candidates and our audience that the video taken tonight is the property of the League and can only be used by the League or licensed media according to FCC regulations. This event will be posted in its entirety. It may not be used by the candidates except to post a link to the complete video. We do not make this request lightly. We have had recent experiences where candidates or their supporters have used portions of our video or an audience member's own video against their opponents. The League is a nonpartisan organization, and use of the video by a campaign specifically against another candidate goes against our purpose. Additionally, this would discredit us with candidates, making it more difficult for us to sponsor future forums. All candidates participating this evening have pledged that they will abide by our policy. Questions were sent to us by members of the community. League members reviewed and compiled them to be representative and to avoid redundancy. We reject questions that are personal. Candidates, this is your opportunity to let voters know your stance on these topics and how you will address the issues facing the city of Saratoga Springs. Please don't waste valuable time tearing down or labeling your opponent. Deal with the facts in your closing statements. Don't put your opponents on the spot with no chance to reply. We have timers for the evening. Cards will be held up for the candidates to glance at. Green means 1 minute left. Timers, can you show the audience what they look like? And yellow means 30 seconds are left. And red means time is up. There are 4 candidates this evening for the 1 seat of Commissioner of Accounts. The candidates as they appear on the ballot are Samantha J. Guerra on the Republicans, Conservative, and Working Families line, Dylan Moran on the Democratic and Resilient Saratoga lines, Angela T. Rella on the Accountability Party lines. Now it is time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. They have drawn lots to determine the order. The first to speak is Dylan Moran. You have 2 minutes.
Very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for fostering this very important opportunity for the 3 of us to discuss our thoughts as they relate to the Office of Accounts and to Saratoga Springs as a whole. I'd love to thank the folks who are here as well, helping to administer this process. And as I said, Ms. Rella and Ms. Guerra, thank you so much for participating. I am Dylan Moran. I'm running for Commissioner of Accounts. I've been endorsed by the Saratoga Springs Democratic Committee, as well as our current Commissioner of Accounts, John Frank. My background, I think a lot of folks have already heard that. We've been sending mailers. We're well along in this campaign. But that being said, I am a native Saratogian. I've lived here my whole life. I'm a property owner, invested in small business. I've got exposure to commercial property as well through my interests and associations. I'm a chemical engineer by degree. And at the center of it all, though, is I'm a helper and I'm a problem solver. That's what I've been doing for my entire career. And when I look at the position of accounts, it really fits my life experience well, certainly better than any position on on the city council as our government is currently constituted. My concerns relate to three specific areas: people, small business, and our future. Through the Office of Commissioner of Accounts, I would be responsible for maintaining the assessment of people's properties, your nearest and dearest owned property. I care very deeply about our small business. I'm involved in the small business community myself. And lastly, but not least, we have major infrastructure issues in this city, and I intend to use the Office of Risk Management and my associations with Congressman Tonko to make sure that infrastructure money, when it does become available from the federal government, winds up in Saratoga Springs to help us solve our problems. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Next, for opening statement is Angela Rella.
Thank you. My name is Angela Rella, and I'm running for Commissioner of Accounts as an independent candidate. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate and giving us a chance to discuss our city. I'm an attorney, a volunteer, a mother, a wife, and a first-time candidate. I have spent the last 8 years volunteering my time, from preparing tax returns for low-income families to representing people who can't afford to pay their legal fees. When I realized that the account seat was open, I looked closely at the position and saw that it aligned so well with my strengths and interests. It is the perfect opportunity for me to continue to give back to the Saratoga community. I grew up in Niskayuna and have been a lifelong resident of New York State. My family chose to move to Saratoga over 8 years ago because of our love of the city. I live in town with my husband, Jim, and my 2 kids, Lucia and Jojo, who attend Saratoga Public Schools. Going door to door, first to get more than 650 signatures to get on the ballot so that I could appear, and then campaigning, I have heard over and over again that the people of Saratoga want a qualified and independent Commissioner of Accounts. I am the candidate with the qualifications and experience to run accounts for you. The Accounts Department requires a very specific set of skills. It oversees contracts, purchasing, real property assessment, insurance, risk management, licensing, and city documents. These are my skills. I have practiced commercial law for over a decade, worked in New York State's insurance and real property assessment offices, and sit on our city's Civil Service Commission. I will manage our contracts honestly and professionally, ensure the safety of our city, and fairly administer the assessment of real property. And as the only independent candidate for accounts, I will continue to build community here in Saratoga. I will bring a commitment to work collaboratively with other members of City Council. I will be a commissioner for all of Saratoga and will answer to you, the citizens, not to political parties, other candidates, or inside players.
Thank you, Angela. Next, for opening statement, Samantha. Where?
Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Samantha Guerra. I am a single mom of 4 children, 2 sets of twins. They definitely keep me on my toes, and I am thankful for my family and my friends because it definitely takes a village. I've lived in Saratoga for more than 2 decades. My children and my community inspired me to run for office. Being a survivor of domestic violence, this city has provided many resources to me and my children to get back on my feet. I would like to dedicate my time now and my energy to give back to the city. My professional management experience gives me the knowledge and the confidence to oversee the day-to-day operations of the Accounts Department. I believe that I am the right candidate for the Commissioner of Accounts with my proven efficiency and leadership skills, as well as the fact I'm the only one that's running for the Accounts Department that did not try to change the charter. I stood for the charter and I want to work for the charter, and I never tried to change it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, it's time now for questions. Candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to questions. You are not required to respond. You may pass if you wish. You have 2 opportunities during the question and answer session to request an additional minute to add to your response or to respond to something another candidate has said. Just hold up your hand and say red card, and I will acknowledge your request and note, give the timers notification to add that 1 minute. So you have 2 cards, 1 minute each. You can use them at the same time or separately. The timer and I will keep track of the number of cards used. Questions will be directed to candidates in rotation so that everyone gets a chance to respond first. Okay, the first question is going to go first to Dylan Moran. And the question is, how do you plan to communicate and work with all Saratoga Springs residents? And how can you ensure that the public feels welcome at city council meetings?
It's the first one of the night. Thank you. I think that's a great question. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about that, because if there's one thing I've demonstrated throughout this campaign, it's a willingness to engage with the public. I've knocked on over 6,500 doors. I've had over 2,000 conversations with constituents at the door, talking about their concerns, their needs. And, you know, when you go into service, certainly all of us who are running for office, regardless of position, have an impression of what that role may be and the things that we can do within it. But if we're not able to reflect the values of our community at large, whether they vote for us or not, we really have to question why we're involved in this. And so I've made a firm commitment to hearing from and making myself available to the full community, and that will not stop. It will only grow upon my election to office. In terms of how I will manage the day-to-day, I plan on having Saturday office hours. Everyone works during the week. I think it's requisite that we would have an opportunity for the commissioner to speak with citizens directly. And so that's something that is going to be absolutely a part of how I run the office. And then lastly, I've been in professional settings for 27, 28 years now, managing meetings, participating in meetings. I've been through crisis training and dealt with some very, very stressful situations. And it comes down to being a professional, leaving your ego at the door and understanding that there's a greater purpose to the work that you're doing. We cannot take these issues personally. We have to be able to act as professionals and treat the public with respect.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Dylan. This next question goes to, the same question goes to Angela. Question number number one.
Thank you, Anne. So I believe that communication is very important. And as an independent candidate, I would be looking to communicate and make a more open and transparent accounts department in City Hall. Accounts department is a wonderful department. It runs very smoothly, but I think we need to have a larger presence on the website for it and a larger social media presence. They're doing a great job. I think we need to promote it more. And I would seek to also have an open door policy. I would love to meet with constituents whenever they need to, not just on the weekends, but whenever they need to talk about their needs and concerns. I would also like to involve nonprofit organizations more closely in City Hall and would love to have an open door policy to meet with them whenever they need. I think the second part of your question was about city council meetings. And I really find it a problem that the city council meetings are held in a small space. I've seen that we've recently moved them to the music hall, and I would seek to continue that because I think whoever wants to be involved in city politics should be welcome.
Okay, thank you, Angela. All right, Samantha, this question goes to you.
So I firmly believe in communication. I think communication is the #1 key. Listen more, talk less. I think that that's what we need to do at the city council meetings. We need to listen to the citizens. We need to listen to their needs, to their wants, and we need to compromise. It's not about meeting everyone's demands, but it's about compromising in a way that everyone in the city can value from any aspect of a determination in the city council. As for the accounts department, as Angela said, nonprofits are my #1 goal, making sure that they're lively, that they have a voice in the city. They are holding the community together for the lower end of the community, and they help so many people. And I will always, as a manager, I've always listened. I've always been available. My phone had rang from 24/7, and I always answered, I always picked up, and I will always be there for anybody that needs me.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. All right, the next question is going to go first to Angela. What changes would you make to the accounts department if you are elected? And what is running well? And as second part to that, what are the specific steps that you would take to transition to the Department of Accounts to provide online forms and access to services for residents and businesses?
Oh, thank you for the question. So I think, as I said earlier, I think the accounts department is running very smoothly. I do think it has been under the same management for 16 years. And I think that somebody who brings a fresh perspective to it would be welcome. I have met with members of the accounts department, and I think they do a great job. One thing that we have coming up is that we have a new assistant assessor. She has started and is being trained right now. And I think we need some management of that. So I would be looking to do that. In terms of licensing, there already is a lot of work being done to put licensing online. There's already a beta program that's coming down the pike. We are working on that, and I think anything I can do to improve on that would be wonderful. We also are seeking a grant to scan the assessment documents so that we have those virtually and not just in hard copy. So I think the accounts runs great. I think we can probably do better, as we always can, and I will be using my experience to try to make it run a little more efficiently.
Thank you, Angela. All right, Dylan.
Thank you very much. So again, we've had one of these discussions already, and we do agree on quite a few issues. I think we all can agree that while severely understaffed, the accounts department in Saratoga Springs government works very, very well. They have been without the resources they need for many, many years. And so if I were to look at things that were possible down the road, I would certainly look to make sure that it was fully staffed and that we aren't overworking people or asking too much of people. And so that's something that may come down the road. Angela mentioned a couple of initiatives that are coming through from a technical side. The IT department is owned by the finance department. And so that's going to necessitate again, working across these silos that exist within our form of government. And again, I have confidence that I can work with anybody. As I said, I check my ego at the door. I come in looking to solve problems and get results. Credit follows that. It's not something that I ever really care about. And in terms of licenses and certain things, New York State dictates a lot of what we can and cannot do. So there are limitations on what we can make available through the website, but I think everyone can recognize that. The Saratoga Springs City website is very tough to navigate, hard to find information, and we have to find ways to make it easier to have engagement. Last thought I have is I'll stop.
Next time you have a chance, you can add those thoughts. All right, I see on my chart here, Samantha, that you should have been second. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, you go now.
I don't mind. So for the accounts department, I do believe that it has run over the past 16 years very smoothly, very quietly, very dully. I think that we need somebody to step in and to have initiative and to actually put forth some effort into the department. I feel like the department has kind of skated by for the past 16 years and nobody's put any effort into it. And that's why we need somebody young, vibrant, somebody in there that can do the work, that knows technology, that knows assessments. I was a real estate agent. I have the background, and somebody that can actually go in there and demand and fight for the accounts department as the rest of the city council does, instead of just letting it skate by.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. All right, the next question is going to go first to Samantha again. The question is, part of the charm and attractiveness of Saratoga Springs depends on its image as a city in the country. Do you believe that the draft Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, contains adequate sustainability measures and effective protection of the green belt?
I think that we definitely need to preserve the green belt in certain circumstances. I think that the UDO has done a great job. I believe that our little city in the country is fantastic and we can always do better in any circumstances. And I'm willing to work with them on that.
Okay, thank you. Next is Dylan.
Well, again, the Unified Development Ordinance in and of itself is a great idea. The intent of the document is to unify our comprehensive plan, our zoning, and our building codes into one resource document for the development within our city. The problem that I have with it is actually been used as a change document and not a unification document. A lot of proposed changes and prescriptive uses within the Greenbelt are not in line with what our comprehensive plan is. And so I still have reservations about what is put forward. The other problem with it is it's a very dense document, very technical. Again, I've read a lot of technical documents in my time. I'm comfortable reading it. I don't think most folks in town are. The sessions that were held during track season. It doesn't seem as if the current city council actually wanted participation in this, but were rather looking to be performative and check a box. The interesting thing about the city and the country approach, though, it does drive some of the housing issues that we have, and hopefully we'll be talking about later. The preservation of land, the creation of 2 to 5 acre lots within our zoning districts does create a situation where property values will escalate because there's a finite amount of land to be built upon. I think we need to look at inclusionary zoning and other elements like that to facilitate more diverse housing stock, because we need a diverse community in order to survive within the economy that we've created, which is largely built around tourism.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, Angela.
I wholeheartedly agree with the vision of Saratoga as the city within the country. I would note that I am the only one of the 3 of us here who has responded to the Sustainable Saratoga questionnaire about this issue. And so if you want to hear more about what I think, whether you agree with what I think or not, it's out there. I'm being transparent. So I urge you to go check that out. I do think the draft UDO is pretty good. I don't think it's great. And I think Dylan and I probably agree on what is wrong with it, or at least in part. I don't think that I think it allows some buildings in the gateway green belt that are not in keeping with our comprehensive plan. And I think that's a problem. I believe tonight is the public comment on it, so we are missing it because we're here at this debate. But I'm curious to see what happens tonight. I also think that we need to do a better job of working with our nonprofits, as I said, and I would be looking to Sustainable Saratoga and Bike-a-Toga, who I've already met with, to help me as a city council person to come to learn about these issues and bring them forward as we need to.
Okay, thank you, Angela. The next question will go first to Dylan. How will you increase transparency in your role as Commissioner of Accounts?
So to increase transparency, again, that word has a lot of different meanings. But I think in most cases, accessibility to the council person, to the orchestration of government. And as I previously said, I've made it my job over the last 7 months to reach every single voter in this community without regard to your party of registration. The folks out there in the community that I've spoken with know that. And I hope that when I'm in office, they'll understand as well. That's not stopping. It's the sincerity of my purpose is to serve this community with all my heart. And again, having lived here my whole life, I know an awful lot of people. It's encouraging when you're walking around and someone knows your mom, or you run into a friend's parent. And again, being part of a community is a commitment, because that social contract that we create when we live in our community, we like our neighbors, we want to support them. Their success is our success, and so it's having that open, collaborative attitude. It's a willingness to listen to folks who have a concern in any area. That's what I do for a living. I'm a listener. I solve problems, and those problems and the solutions for them are often in the heads of the folks who are bringing those concerns to you. So it's having the wisdom to know, again, you don't have to have every idea in order to solve problems. You have to have the willingness to listen.
Thank you, Dylan. Next is Angela.
Thank you. Well, transparency is very important to me. And I just want to point out that I am running as an independent candidate. So I do not have any party backing. What I have is an ability to speak with voters and bring their concerns forward. And so to make the accounts department more transparent, which I think is crucial, we need to have it more open. We need to have more communication. For example, recently, where there was the recent contract for the building management of the new EMS fire station, we were not transparent about which contract we decided to take, and that backfired. It ended up in the newspaper. We went with a higher bid, which doesn't mean it's necessarily the wrong thing to do, but we need to be proactive. We need to get that message out so that we don't end up with internal emails in the newspaper. We don't want those kind of things to make it harder for our community to get what it needs. So I would increase transparency. I would, as we talked about, have office hours, have constituents able to come in and meet with me, nonprofits meetings. I want it to be clear from the website and from all our communication what the accounts department is doing.
Thank you, Angela. And Samantha.
So transparency, seeing how this is a part-time position and we elect a full-time deputy, I want to make sure my deputy is compatible, that is transparent. And that's one of my goals, is to make sure that they are transparent in every aspect, that they, as well as myself, are for every citizen, regardless of party affiliation or non-party. We are all registered as a party, and to throw out that we're just an independent is not fair, because we all are registered with a party and we are all going in here as a person that is a civilian in the city, going in to do our best, regardless of party affiliation. And I think that that's the transparency that people need to realize, that I think Dylan and Angela both are going in here with the hopes of us as a citizen going in to help the community, not party affiliation. So that's something that we need to kind of throw out there. As well as the fact that being a manager, my door has always been open. I've always listened. I've always had to solve problems. And that's what you need adequate staff for, to make sure all of those things get done as well.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, we're ready for question number 5. And this will go first to Angela. The city has identified a need for affordable housing and low-income housing. What will you do in your role as Commissioner of Accounts to meet that need? Also, do you think tax assessments might play a role?
Thank you for the question. I first want to just go back to something Samantha said, if I could. I am not registered with a party, so I don't know if she meant that I was registered with a party. I created my own party called the Accountability Party, so I'm not registered with a major party. Affordable housing is crucial. I want to make sure that the workers in our restaurants, our firefighters, that they can afford to live here. That's what makes this place vibrant, that we have people who live and work here. I know when we moved here, I really wanted to live in town, and my husband was working in town. So affordable housing is crucial. And I think Dylan has already mentioned inclusionary zoning. I think that is great. And I think we should move forward with that. I would also want to work with the nonprofits to get more housing and to get more affordable housing in our communities. I believe we are revamping Jefferson Terrace. I think I'd love to put I'd love to put some sort of community room in there and grow that neighborhood as well. Tax assessments, I don't think will be playing a role right now because we have all three of us pledged we are not going to reassess. We're not going to conduct a citywide reassessment.
Okay. Thank you, Angela. Now is Samantha.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Okay. The city has identified a need for affordable housing and low-income housing. What will you do in your role as Commissioner of Accounts to meet that need? And do you think tax assessments might play a role?
I don't think tax assessments will meet that role, but I do believe that we need affordable housing, especially coming from a single mom of 4 children. It is tough. It is tough to live in Saratoga, being a single mom with 4 kids. It's tough to find a house big enough for us or an apartment big enough, and it's tough to find something that's affordable. I was very fortunate to find where I am now. But I know a lot of other single women and I know a lot of people in the city that have had a very, very hard time finding somewhere that they can afford to where they can walk to work. And that's one of my priorities as a city council member, is to make sure people like myself and people like low income or even medium income can't afford to live in Saratoga at this point. And that's my #1 goal.
Thank you, Samantha. And now it's time for Dylan's response to question number 5.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start with a couple definitions because this topic came up during the mayor's debate, and it seemed as if one candidate didn't quite understand what it meant. Publicly funded housing, as Angela was speaking about, Jefferson Terrace, is not affordable housing. That is housing for our working poor. It's supported by the federal government. We have a few areas within our community that are supported by this. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about housing that actual normal people working normal jobs can afford to have. The average sale price for a home was $495,000 in August of this year. Single bedroom apartments are going for $1,800. That is not affordable. When my family immigrated here from Ireland, my father lived in Jefferson Terrace from the mid-50s until I was born in 1970. I lived in an apartment until I was 12 years old, and then my parents could afford to buy a tiny little house. Okay, now that tiny little house is owned by somebody, and it's been turned into an Airbnb, and it's generating money for them, and it's excluding families like the one that I grew up in from having the opportunity to live in Saratoga Springs. Over 1,800 properties by the estimates that I've been able to garner show this pervasiveness within our community. It's harming neighborhoods. It's changing the neighborhood, the nature and the quality of living within neighborhoods. We have to look at inclusionary zoning. We have to look at the effects of Airbnb. And those would be some of the solutions that I would bring forward as it relates to what affordable housing needs to be in our community.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay. We're ready for question number 6, and it will go first to Samantha. With the construction of a 3rd EMS station on the east side, the city will need to equip, staff, and manage the facility. How do you plan to weigh in on those needs?
I think the fire station is a great asset to our city as well as to our residents. I think it's my #1 issue with it is I've heard, whether it's rumors or not, but I heard that they're not sure if they can staff it with more than 3 firemen per truck. And that's something that concerns me. I think that we need to make sure with regulations that it's supposed to be 4 firemen or women per truck. And my #1 goal for the fire station is to make sure that it's staffed adequately. And we need to figure out the funding to make sure, because why build it if we can't fund it?
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Okay, next is Dylan.
Thank you. Apologize for some noise coming. In terms of the EMS station, what Samantha said is absolutely correct. We can't build a building and then not staff it. The building is not going to have a great response time to the Eastern Plateau. It's not going to have any response time. I do believe we do have to have it fully staffed in as much as the regulations require 4 of our firemen and women to be on that piece of equipment. It's safe, 2 in, 2 out is the rule. It's a commitment that we make to our men and women who choose to do this, that we're going to give them the tools they need to be successful, and we're going to make sure that we're staffing them in a way that they can afford to be safe. In terms of funding mechanisms, I mentioned to you the Airbnb definitely is a revenue stream which we can tap into. Something else that is coming to our city is marijuana legalization. We've discussed that. I think, there's certainly some areas around each of our positions, but we're generally in favor of this. This is a tax that we can dedicate to whatever we want, but it's something that we need to do. And we certainly can't place a special tax just on the eastern perimeter, because this station is going to serve everybody. Depending on the demand at any given moment, they may be responding to the west side of town. That's the reality of how our fire companies work. But it's a long time coming. It's a project that absolutely needs to happen. And I'm going to support looking for and finding those revenue streams necessary to make it a reality.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. All right, we're ready for Angela.
Thank you. Do you mind repeating the question just so I make sure I
Sure.
have it all?
Okay. With the construction of a 3rd EMS station on the east side of the city will need to equip, staff, and manage it. How do you plan to weigh in on those needs?
Thank you, Ann. So I currently serve on the Civil Service Commission, which means that right now I am one of 3 commissioners that deal with the hiring of city employees. That includes our firefighters. So I see how hard the fire department works to get qualified candidates. And I would be the best candidate to shepherd that in and to make sure that we get these candidates in here. I think that the East Side Fire Station is very important. It's critical. And I would do everything I can as the Commissioner of Accounts to move those contracts forward, to move the hiring of firefighters forward, and to make sure that they have the staffing and resources they need to do the job safely. I think we've mentioned Airbnb a couple of times. And I think that before we come out on a position of whether we would be willing to tax Airbnbs, I think we really need to think about that. I think that that requires a level of enforcement that we maybe aren't set up for. We would probably need to hire some more code enforcers to do that. That is a big revenue stream for a lot of our community, and I would want to look very closely before I agreed to tax Airbnbs.
Okay, thank you, Angela. All right, we're ready for question number 7, and it will go first to Dylan. Oh, what?
I was raising my hand there for a while. I'm sorry if you didn't notice.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Would you like to use
that's
a
not a
red
problem.
card?
I would
Would you like-
please. Yes, I would just like to respond to a couple of things Ms. Rella said.
All right, timers. Dylan has 1 minute at this point for a red card.
Sure. So again, we did talk about the need for staffing, and she does bring up the fact that it is a challenge. The number one thing, though, is it's got to be budgeted for right now. It takes 18 months to make the hire, allow them to be adequately trained and brought on board. That station is slated for opening in 2022. Another facet of my background is I've been involved in the construction game for quite some time. I understand how to go through specifications. I understand how to work through bids. I've responded to tons of bids, both in the municipal and private sector. I understand how to manage projects on the construction side of things. And so in terms of having an urgency in the execution of these contracts as it relates to the build of this structure, I'm absolutely the right person for that.
Okay. All right, does anyone else want to use a red card at this point? All right, question number 7 will go first to Dylan. Would you support having the city issue a municipal ID to any proven resident who requests one?
So first off, obviously, if someone's looking for a resident ID, that licensure would likely come out of the Commissioner of Accounts office. Is there more texture to this question to understand what the purpose would be? Obviously, the New York State has a non-driver's ID that they can access through without any sort of concerns for perhaps their documented status. I believe that is a non, an ID that provides them that identification for obviously general purposes. I'm not apart from it, but I guess I would want to understand where the need's coming from and what the intent would be. The legality of which, I'm not a lawyer. I couldn't comment on, what it would be valid for. There's college IDs out there that, they're not worth anything other than perhaps to get into a building or a class. So what would be the purpose? That's a pretty open-ended question. So I'm not sure that there's much more to offer there.
As you know, we got these questions from the community, and so there's not really much chance for us, for the league members, to question anyone who is sent the question in. And I agree, maybe it needs a little more background, but it's more or less a yes or no question. But so we'll move on and listen to what Angela, how she would respond to an ID. I mean, municipal ID for someone who wants one.
Yes, well, I am a lawyer, so I am absolutely in favor of a municipal ID. I do a lot of work pro bono for immigrants in Saratoga. I help track workers with their tax returns. I help them safety plan, and a municipal ID would give them some comfort in being able to use the services of Saratoga. So I absolutely would be for a municipal ID.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Samantha?
So I agree with what Angela is saying a little bit. I do know that I had gotten one when I had lost my ID and I needed to get on a flight in the town of Glenville at the police department. So I know that the police department in Glenville actually issues them. So it's definitely something that the Saratoga Springs City Council would have to figure out how they wanted to go about it and how they wanted to do it. But I am in favor of people being able to get the municipal IDs for certain circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question number 8. We have 12 questions this evening, by the way. So the past year has shown the need for all residents to have access to the internet. What can be done to help all neighborhoods and residents have the ability to have adequate internet? Okay, and this question goes first to Angela.
Thank you. I think this is crucial. I think especially given last year and the amount of kids doing school from home, parents working from home, we need to expand our internet access. I believe we have this in the budget. I think that the finance department, the IT department is within the finance department, and I think they're moving forward on this. As Commissioner of Accounts, I would love to move those contracts forward. I think it's a good idea and I would do all I can to help it.
Thank you, Angela. Now, Samantha.
I definitely believe that we need some form of better internet. I feel like having 4 kids at home, especially during the pandemic, trying to get all 4 of them online at the same time, the internet kept getting in and out. And I definitely think we need some better internet, or there's got to be something we can do to make it faster, or there's so many people on it. And I think that the more generations we get online, the more we need some kind of higher speed to where it is efficient for everybody and not cutting out, especially like tonight, if everybody was online doing schoolwork and work, this Zoom would probably not be working very well. It would be cutting in and out. which is something that I've noticed with my kids being in school, online, at home. And I would be very, very for making sure that we can come to some resolution to make that better.
Thank you, Samantha. Dylan?
Thank you. Well, first off, obviously, we have generally one service provider available to us. That would be Spectrum. I think we can all agree that its inconsistency and let's just say lack of robustness is very frustrating for everybody. I feel for Ms. Guerra and having 4 kids at home over the last year and a half trying to do schoolwork. Understanding a little bit about technology, the way that technology is deployed, the more users that you have on it, the slower it works. And so we're stuck with that infrastructure at the moment. But I don't believe that federal government or local government, for that matter, should be investing in technology. Businesses lease technology for a reason. It changes so rapidly that it's not a good investment. I would guarantee you the servers that we use in City Hall are antiquated if it wasn't for a fire. And so investing in installing a fiber optic network in our community that really gives us no choice, and it's likely to be a legacy technology before the project ever gets off the ground. I don't think that's the right path to pursue. Data transmission speeds with 5G are such that they may render a lot of these technologies insignificant. But one area I would look at, and that's the word access. We do need to make sure that the least of our community have what they need to be on a level playing field, especially when we're being put into positions where parents have to teach their children from home. And so I think that in working with the providers, we should be able to find it. And I'll keep going on this just a little bit to be fair, because
You want to use your red card?
Yeah, let me just continue on this thought, just because I'm going over it a little bit, and my ideas will continue for a sec.
Okay, 1 more minute.
Great. So with our service providers, those contracts are typically negotiated through the mayor's office, much like our non-for-profits are centered in the mayoral's office and not the accounts department. But the execution of those contracts does fall in specifically with the accounts department. I think that there is a way that we can find some income adjusted access to internet. That's one, it's already addressed through New York State. There is a requirement for Spectrum to do that, but I think we can take it a step further and find a way to make sure every single person that needs it has it, and not only has it, but it has it and it's working and it's cost effective, so that parents who are struggling right now, and there's a lot of them, at least have a modicum of satisfaction in knowing their children have access to education and that they can get what they need at this very, very difficult time.
Thank you, Dylan. We're ready for question. Oh, another red card, Angela? All
Yes,
right.
please. I think this is my first one. Is that right?
It is.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to respond a little bit about the nonprofits being centered in the mayor's office. And I feel that my role as Commissioner of Accounts would be to build community and to help the community. And I would challenge that notion that the nonprofits are centered in the mayor's office. I think there is a lot of work that we can do in the accounts department with nonprofits. I think, and I think we can work with the handicapped. I think we can work with Shelters of Saratoga. I think we can work with Wellspring. There are events and there are things that we can do to really support these nonprofits and the great work that they're doing. A food drive can happen out of any office. It doesn't need to be the mayor's office. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe we're in question number 9 now. And it goes first to Angela. Homelessness continues to be a problem in this city. What are your plans to solve the problem? Do you believe the city should actively support the creation of a navigation center? Apparently that's a facility that supplies services, including shelter to homeless persons.
Yes, I absolutely think we should do that. I know we have Code Blue and I know we have some great wintertime resources, but a drop-in all-season center, I completely support that. This is a real issue. it's a tough one because you cannot force homeless to leave the streets. But we need to make the services available. We need to be compassionate about it, and we need to be smart about it. So there are plenty of nonprofits that are doing great work. There's the Alliance End Homelessness. There's the Shelters of Saratoga. There's RISE. I would be for partnering with them to make sure that we are doing the best we can to solve our homeless problem.
Thank you, Angela. Samantha?
I agree with Angela. I think RISE, Saratoga Shelters, and Franklin Community Center have done a fantastic job on trying to advocate for the homeless, as well as bring them together into a center where they can get the services they need for the daytime, the nighttime, the housing, the mental services, and all of the services that they need. And it's still a work in progress. Obviously, we all see that. We still see them on the streets. We still see it's definitely going to take some time, but I think they're doing a fantastic job, and they need all of the support from the community members to push through to make sure that what they are all coming together to navigate is amazing. And we all need to work together in Saratoga to make sure that that happens so that we can help and advocate for these homeless people.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, and Dylan.
Thank you. Well, you know, again, this homeless issue and it's not an issue. It's the truth. It's been here for a very, very, very long time. The reasons why folks are on the street are varied. The reasons why people are able to get off the street are varied. We have tremendous effort and compassion within our community that's trying to work at this. But what's obvious to me is it's not working. We have camps full of homeless people on the perimeter of our town. We've had task force get together. We have folks like Ed and Lisa Mitzen who are a godsend with their generosity to our community, and we can't even find a way to spend $1 million to help these folks. I mean, it's shameful. And we have to have a reckoning as a community, because homelessness grows and is a direct offset of gentrification. And this community has been gentrified heavily over the last 15 years. It's going to take all of us working together, and it's going to take additional resources that we're not getting from the county right now that we should be getting. To answer the navigation center question, absolutely. What a great unifying element that would be. We have a perfect building right in the center of downtown that the county just sold. That could have been this navigation center. It could have been gifted to us, but instead it was sold to the highest dollar. So we really need to start asking ourselves who we are, what we want, and how we're going to be, because it is a direct reflection of us.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, the next question is going to go to you first, Dylan. This is question number 10. The economy of Saratoga Springs is based in large part on tourism, which brings expenses as well as income. How can we fund and provide services to both a large tourist population and our year-round city residents?
Well, first off, we're doing that already. So, you know, how well we're doing it perhaps is the question. If you look at the various things that go on in our community, we've got SPAC, exists on state land. We've got the Saratoga racetrack. We've got the Saratoga harness track. We've got the Racino. All of those exist on lands with which we really don't have levers to pull. We can ask, we can hope, but ultimately these things are given to us, quote unquote, by the government while we're the host community. So what we really need to do is look at what are these ancillary areas where we can grasp revenue. Airbnb is one of those. A user fee applied to an Airbnb rental doesn't hurt the operator of that Airbnb. Every single place I go and use Airbnb, I pay a user fee. Every single person during the track season who comes and stays in a hotel pays a 6% fee as an occupancy tax. Why that doesn't apply to Airbnbs is beyond me. Again, it's not some sort of retribution. It's not some sort of tax. It's a user fee. Folks are coming to our community. We ought to be able to garner the revenue associated with that. In terms of the track, certainly we should be in negotiation and using representatives like Assemblywoman Warner, who's done a tremendous job within our equine racing community to help support that industry itself, and also to assist us with getting the VLT aid that we deserve and we're promised. So it's a combination of working with the state, coming up with creative local
Thank you.
options.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay. All right. Angela is next.
Okay, thank you. Do you mind repeating the question?
Sure.
Thank
The economy of Saratoga Springs is based in large part on tourism, which brings expenses as well as income. How can we fund and provide services to both a large tourist population and our year-round city residents?
I think we are doing this already. And I think we need to work more closely with the county and the state to make sure we are getting the funds we can from this tourism to help us provide services for our own community. For example, we've done a really good job starting to promote Saratoga as a destination for film. The recent Owen Wilson movie that will be coming out about Bob Ross, that was filmed here in Saratoga. And that takes a lot of work from mainly the accounts department and other departments in City Hall, but that brings revenue to us, that brings visibility to us. And I would want to promote things like that, those kind of collaborations. I also think that there are untapped fees and monies that we can receive. For example, I think we can receive some tax credits for doing that kind of filming. I think there's money out there that we can use to support our community. And a lot of that comes from tourism.
Okay. Thank you, Angela. And next is Samantha.
So this is a great question, and this is definitely a question that I do not come to the assumption of knowing it all or knowing exactly where we can get the funds from or how we can get the funds. That's the one great thing about running for a position, and you are a civilian coming into the accounts department, especially the roadblocks that I've been given with being able to understand anything in the accounts department at this point. I think that there are so many ways that we can do better with getting more revenue from the city or from the community. And like Angela was saying, the movie being filmed here and things like that. And I definitely advocate for it and I will look into it, but it's not something that I know exactly. I can't tell you 15 answers on how I'm going to do it, but I will definitely work hard to do what I need to do to make that happen.
Thank you, Samantha. I believe we're ready for question number 11, and it goes first to Angela. Do you support the creation and funding of a civilian review board? If not, why? If so, how will you help to ensure that it is effective?
Thank you for that question. I absolutely support a citizen review board, or what is, I think it's currently being called a CPB. I support adoption of the recommendations of the Police Reform Task Force in whole. So that would include the CRB and outlawing no-knock warrants. What I do want is the CRB to be a robust organization that helps to heal our community. We're really going through a tough time right now. And so I would support that with my legal background. This is legislation. This is things that, this is what I know. And so I want to make sure there's enough protections in there for both the community and the city, as my job as in risk management. If I run the accounts department, I would need to look very closely at that. And I'm the person to do that. I also want to point out that I'm the only candidate up here who has answered the MLK Saratoga questionnaire. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts on this and racial justice, please check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And now Samantha.
Thank you. I feel like they had asked me the MLK. The reason why I did not answer it is because the first question they asked me was about the CRB, and I am not for it. I do not believe that we need it. I don't think that it's going to make a difference, especially tonight when you see them during the city council meeting. They're saying that what they've proposed is not good enough for them. And so that is why I did not fill out the MLK Saratoga, because no matter what I say, they're not going to agree with what I like or what I say. So there was pretty much no point for them to do that. I don't believe that we need a CRB. I think that the amount of money that it's going to cost for the type of CRB that they are looking for is not worth it. The city maybe gets, what, 3 to 7 complaints a year. And for us to pay out, like they were giving, Jason was giving us the dollar amount that Utica used, $430,000, that could help fund our fire station. Why are we going to spend this money when we have very little complaints? We do need to bring back some common ground between the police department and the civilians, and the CRB is not the way to do it, because as of today, they don't want it anyway.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Dylan.
Well, I'm going to have to take exception with a few things that Ms. Guerra just said. First off, I want to know who they and them are. We have constituents in this community that have petitioned change within our government, which is their First Amendment right. After the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Governor Cuomo directed every community in this state to evaluate their resources and services as it relates to our professional police services. Every single city council member placed members onto that community, and every single council member spoke about how proud they were of the work that they did. And then they rejected the work that they did. I agree with Angela Rella. We do need to institute all 50 of those recommendations. There may be 1 or 2 that perhaps has some legality where we may not be able to fully comply. For instance, no-knock warrants, we can eliminate them for our police department, but if a federal agent shows up, we don't have jurisdiction over federal agents. So there would be limitations in that regard. But what is being currently talked about at the city council is not what was put forward by the city task force. And quite simply, it's a vehicle to bring trust back to this community. It's going to help every single officer on our police force to know that if someone makes a derogatory or false complaint about them, they have the ability to challenge that and have that expunged from their record. Just as a community member who may have had a bad interaction with the police department doesn't have the ability or confidence to go to them now and make a complaint.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, a red card for Samantha. 1 minute, timers.
They, as in the task force and the community members that are pushing for it. I do know that tonight at the city council meeting, they are going to reject the civilian review board that they're opposing. And I agree that we need something to bring the community back together, but I don't think a civilian review board is going to do it. I think that a civilian review board is just going to tear the community apart further and further. And when you put out allegations and they don't hold truth, and you just put them out there for everyone to see without it actually being investigated, it does make people wonder. And I think that a civilian review board would actually tear our community further apart.
Okay, thank you. Any other red cards? Angela.
So I feel strongly that we need a forum for the community to lodge complaints against police when they want to. That is not going into the police department and seeing the same police officers that they are alleging these complaints against. As a lawyer, I've represented domestic violence victims who had to go into their police department and talk to either their abuser or one of their abuser's coworkers. That is not a way to solve these kind of problems and to bring this community together. So a well-organized, a well-supervised citizen review board, I think, is absolutely necessary for us to heal this community.
Okay. We used up almost everybody's red cards. So, and we're going on to the last question. which is the last chance to use it, Samantha, in case you want to use another one. In general, okay, the first one to answer is Samantha. In general, how might Saratoga Springs extend a welcome to immigrants? And what role might the city council and or the office you are running for have in that welcome? Are there any other issues that you plan to address in your platform that are related to immigrants in the community?
I think the accounts department with the licensing can help with the immigrants coming to Saratoga. I think that that we have quite a few. Obviously, we know we have quite a few that come here, like we were talking about earlier, the municipal ID. I think there's many ways to make them feel comfortable and feel welcome here. And in the accounts department and as a city council member, to our power in Saratoga, I will do what I can to make sure that they feel comfortable and feel welcome.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Next is Dylan.
Thank you. Well, Saratoga Springs, like every single city and town and village in the United States of America, is a city of immigrants. Unless you're a member of one of the 7 nations, you're not native from here. And so to recognize the diversity of our culture over the years is to understand Saratoga Springs. Urban renewal has been very destructive. It's often talked about as it relates to our African American community, but the Italians were harmed by that as well. There's a very rich and deep Italian heritage in the west side of Saratoga Springs that was scarred by urban renewal. And now the types of immigration that we see, whether it be folks from Central and South America who are associated with our equine sports, or perhaps if we have folks coming from Afghanistan looking for refuge, we have to have that open and accepting attitude because that's who we've always been. I said to you myself, I'm a first-generation American. I've been welcomed to this community, and this community provided me the opportunities that I have that got me to where I am today. I do know that my life experience would be vastly different if my family came from Guyana than it came from Ireland. And so again, I think that we as a community really need to understand who we are and who we want to be. We have to have the empathy for everyone. We have to show the compassion for everyone. The term carpetbagger is used derogatorily towards everybody who joins this community, and I find it off-putting. As a first-generation American, I welcome everyone.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. And the last is Angela.
Thank you. So supporting immigrants, and not just supporting, but welcoming immigrants is crucial. I think it's very important to me. I work with immigrants. I help them obtain legal status. The people I work with, they want to work. They want to be part of the community. They want to be welcomed, and they would enrich our community so much. So I would do everything I can to help not just support immigrants, but welcome immigrants into our community. A couple of the ideas I have that I've been kicking around is, for example, a mentorship program. We have some immigrants here that are part of our community. When we receive new immigrants, can we pair them together? Can we have someone help them sort of navigate Saratoga, introduce them to this wonderful community? Yes, we are very welcoming, but sometimes it's a little hard to break in. Also in accounts, we have accounts is responsible for licensing new businesses. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could use that to really support new businesses by immigrants? I think our whole community would be richer for that. So if I'm elected Commissioner of Accounts, supporting and even better, welcoming immigrants would be an important part of my role.
Okay, thank you, Angela. And now we're going to move on to closing statements. Candidates, you have 1 minute for your closing statement. And we start with Dylan.
Well, thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody that's facilitated this evening. I'd like to thank my opponents for their well thought out responses and for what I feel is a nice exchange of ideas this evening. As I said, I'm a child of this town. I know it, I love it, I live it, and I've been walking it for the last 6 months. The message that I've conveyed to every single person is the same. I care about the people. I want to make sure our long-term homeowners are protected from the undue excesses of a reassessment and what that would mean to their tax bills. Our small businesses, I'm calling for a 3-year extension to our outdoor dining program because that was essential to their survival, and they are a part of our identity. And lastly, we didn't get into infrastructure, but through the Office of Risk Management, I intend on making sure that infrastructure dollars come to Saratoga Springs to repair long-standing issues, because we need to erect structure the success of the city for the next 100 years. That is our obligation. Thank you so much. Please support me on November 2nd. Vote
Thank you,
Row A.
Dylan. Thank you, Dylan. Okay. All right, next is Angela, your closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone here, the League of Women Voters, the other candidates. We had a great opportunity to speak about our city tonight. I want to remind you that I am the independent, qualified, and accountable candidate for Commissioner of Accounts that the city needs right now. I'm the only one not affiliated with a major party. I'm running on my own line, the Accountability Party, which is way down at the bottom of the ballot, line H. I will always work with the rest of City Council, with the state, with the county to do what's best for you, the residents of Saratoga, and not anyone else. I'm the only candidate with experience in contracts, insurance, real property assessment, and working in and managing a civil service department. This is a time of upheaval at City Hall. I will keep the accounts department running smoothly to get the most out of our taxpayer dollars. And I'm working hard to run a grassroots campaign. I'm up here before you because I saw an opening and realized I'm the best candidate for the job. I'm running so that Saratoga can succeed. I'm running to teach my kids that if you want something, if you think you have something to offer, and you don't back down and you put yourself out there. Democracy is about choice. Please choose me on November 2nd.
Thank you, Angela. Samantha?
As a single mom of 4 kids, 2 sets of twins, I never imagined to be in this position, but the Saratoga Springs we've been experiencing lately isn't the one I grew up in, not the one I want my kids to grow up in. I want our community to go back to being respectful of people's opinions, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. I want to feel safe as my kids walk to the playground. As your next Commissioner of Accounts, I want to be the voice in the City Council. I will advocate for respect, civility, and unity. I will work to modernize the Accounts Department and streamline our resources electronically. It's time we bring the 21st century into our City Hall. I will create a fair, equitable process for all nonprofits to receive funding. And most importantly, I will focus on making sure we're doing our jobs and listening to the community members. Thank you for your support and helping me get to the finish line. We are 2 weeks away for Election Day on November 2nd, and every bit counts for Samantha Guerra.
Thank you, Samantha. And I want to thank all 3 candidates for appearing tonight and for giving thoughtful and respectful views on the issues. Remember, audience, to vote. Early voting starts this Saturday, October 23rd through Sunday, October 31st. Absentee ballots may be requested in person by November 1st and returned in person by November 2nd. The general election polls are open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And besides the candidates, turn your ballot over. There's 5 questions. And if you need information on those questions, the League has pros and cons of all the ballot proposals on Vote 411. You can go to our website, LWVSaratoga.org, or go directly to a League organized vote411.org. So don't forget to turn your ballot over to vote for all of the proposals. Check if you need to know where to vote, check with the Board of Elections. And again, thank you, candidates, for attending tonight. And thank you, audience, for taking the time to learn about the candidates.